Happy Halloween, everyone. Boil, boil, toil and trouble, sold my soul to Barney Rubble. So in celebration of Halloween, we are going to go on our spookiest marathon yet. Ooh, yeah, so we are going to be watching the Saw movies. Not every Saw movie. We're going to be doing specifically Saw 1, Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4, Saw 5, Saw 6, Saw 3D, the final chapter, or whatever it's called. It's going to be loud. It's going to be messy.
Well, I gotta say, I am quite happy that I woke up at 7 o'clock for this, because I think it's worth it.
Do you think you're going to root for Jigsaw in the end? Because his whole thing is he's not a murderer, right?
I know he's sick, and I know he only hurts bad people. So yeah. No, I'm not sick in
I don't know very much because I never saw it. This is the most movies we've ever watched in a day for one of these. And normally after 3 movies, my brain is like melting out of my ears. And I don't even know what's going to happen to me after 7. I still have no idea what these movies are. I just know the guy from The Princess Bride is in them. I just always want him to be doing well.
We're going to see a lot of saws.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of pigs.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of grungy looking people in empty warehouses get murdered. And isn't that what cinema's all about? Yeah, I like this a lot. I really didn't know what to expect going in because I know this franchise more based on its reputation. So to see the franchise start off on a note that was a little more subdued and more thriller based than like in your face gore effects and traps, that was nice. I can see why they saw dollar signs because
You said Saw.
oh, okay.
Rise and shine, Adam. You're probably wondering where you are.
I gotta say, I liked it. I thought I was gonna hate it. And I really, really, really liked it. Obsessed with Carrie. Is it Elwes or... Oh, I was obsessed with his accent. It changed like 40 different times. And it just got better and better and better.
The guy became obsessed. He convinced himself that I must have somehow been involved with the murders. I mean, he was crazy.
He took people whose lives were bad, not like bad people. Like I was waiting for there to be a plot twist that Lawrence was like, I don't know, a pedophile or something. But it was just like he considered cheating on his wife because he was unhappy. And like Adam, all he did was be kind of an asshole. The guy who with the razor wire, he's like, you tried to kill yourself.
Did you cut yourself because you truly wanted to die, or did you just want some attention?
You know, I guess I appreciate the name Saw, but I will say on my list of Saws, there's only 2 in this. My book of Saw, some might say. I like the traps. I like the way they worked around not having a budget.
I like when movies have no budget because I think they end up getting creative. If they made Saw with a budget, I'm assuming by the end they're going to have all these CGI traps and stuff. And it's going to be stupid as hell. My favorite trap, this is going to be like a cop-out, but I really like the bathroom trap. I think it was very fun. There were like 17 different traps within it. It was really fun.
I went to bed in my shithole apartment and woke up in an actual shithole.
I did like the classic booby trap, shotgun trap. But I will say that the reverse bear trap, that's just original. Like, that's a really good idea, and that's what the short film was based
Really
on.
good idea.
Taking notes.
I got my book of Saw here. I'm taking notes.
Technically speaking, he's not really a murderer.
Well, he didn't kill anyone. The law of Jigsaw is my law.
Jig Law.
Jig law.
He's a bad guy. He's killing people. He shouldn't do that. My favorite trap, this may be controversial, but I'm willing to put myself out there. My favorite trap was actually the one with the guy with the candle. Because I thought it was hilarious that they said immediately before that scene, he's never killed anyone. And the first thing Jigsaw says is, I've poisoned you.
Right now, there's a slow-acting poison in your veins.
Didn't need to poison him.
Game over.
This just felt like a nice, neat little throwback horror thriller. James Wan's style is one of the more distinctive in modern horror. I mean, even watching stuff like Malignant now, you can see a lot of the same stylistic touches that he's been doing for years. And,
Just
narrative...
Malignant do the thing where they just speed up and they're like writhing around.
They didn't do a lot of that. As much as I hate the aesthetic of the early 2000s in film, I really like those edits. There's something about them. It's something so temporally specific about seeing that. You just know the time period that movie was made in. Either way, I'm very, very happy I've now seen the first Saw. I've wanted to see this movie forever, and it's nice that, like, it was as good as people say. Saw 1, excellent. Saw 2 through 7, I am not optimistic, but we will see.
You're not so optimistic.
I'm not so optimistic at all.
I think you'll be happy to know that in this movie, Saw 2, there is a total of 2 Saws yet again. But guess what? They're the same saws from the last movie. Why call it Saw if you barely use any saws? Like, what's the point?
I was expecting the sequels to be worse. I wasn't expecting them to be this much worse so quickly.
I really don't have many thoughts about Saw 2 because it's basically like, what if more Saw but worse?
Greetings and welcome. I trust that you are all wondering where you are.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everything I liked about Saw was gone. They weren't creative with the traps anymore. They were just very violent. I mean, the first trap with the key behind the guy's eye, I think was creative. And so even though I didn't like it and didn't watch it, I thought that they were going to be just as good as the last time. And they really weren't. None of them made sense to me. The oven thing, they just locked him in an oven. What was he supposed to do about that? How was he supposed to get out of it?
Not as interesting or as intense as the first one, I'd say. They tried, though. They really threw a lot in there. Had a lot more characters. They had a lot more budget, that's for sure. It took a big swing. And, some of it hit. I liked the ending. I thought the ending was fun. All the twists. I mean, I just love twists. And I like that they brought the bathroom back. We found out what happened to Adam.
Not much. All the people in the house who are part of the game are just pawns in Donnie Wahlberg's game. The game the characters are playing does not matter because the script knows that they don't have to win because it's all part of another plan. So the game is really boring because it means nothing to the story. The story is there are people in traps and they need to get out.
What is this, house arrest? Are we in jail?
Nah, this ain't jail, man.
Giving us so many more characters felt like a really blatant grab for more of an audience. They added hot girls. When they just throw in a couple girls in like full makeup and hot outfits to the gritty horror story, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm sure they have well-rounded backstories that will contribute a lot.
Somebody open the door!
I don't think anybody's listening.
Was her name Laura, who had 3 lines and died, or the other girl whose name was...
Did they even say what her backstory was?
No, neither of them. We don't know what either of their crimes are. I think they probably said each of their names, but I certainly didn't hear them or process them. I think it was better when it was 2 characters. We got to know all about both of them. We got to see their relationship. I was really rooting, at least for Lawrence to get out. And Adam, I was sad when Adam was forced to die. Whereas this movie, anytime someone died, I was like, oh, okay. Like, they don't succeed at any of the tasks. They don't even get the numbers on the back of the neck. We have that dramatic thing where he cuts it out of his neck. They never find the combination. And he says there will be a clue to tell you what order the numbers will be in. We never find that. There's no payoff to anything at all. I didn't like any of these traps. The one where the girl reaches into the box and her hands get cut off, it's just like... okay, that was gory. I wouldn't want that to happen to me, but it wasn't interesting. It didn't apply to her character at all.
Those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
My son appreciates his life.
But do you appreciate yours?
The pathology of Jigsaw is layered. We spend much more time with Jigsaw, the actual Jigsaw, as an active part of the plot, and making it more of a head-to-head with this detective is interesting, and I really like Tobin Bell as an actor and in this role. I just wish it wasn't Donnie Wahlberg playing a really generic cop on the edge cliche. I mean, Jigsaw does feel like he's constantly in control, but more so because Donnie Wahlberg just looks kind of dumb.
Tell me where my son is. I'll help you.
I don't need your help, and I can tell you still don't understand.
I didn't like seeing Jigsaw, like the real person, kind of ruined it for me. I liked when he was just a f***ed up little puppet. Not 1 second of this movie had the same payoff of the first time he's using the saw and we realize he has to cut his foot off, or the moment where he like tourniquets up his foot and we're like, oh my God, he's really gonna
he's
do
going
it.
for it. It's happening.
And he had like stakes for getting out. He was like, his wife and kid are gonna die. Why did any of these people want to leave so bad besides just this sucks? I just want something to make me feel how Gordon cutting his foot off made me feel.
I really liked the needle trap. I thought the needle trap was really interesting, and also as I mentioned to you guys earlier, I think filming that would have been a lot of fun because you just get jumped into a pit, you just get to fling all the needles around, you know.
James loves doing that.
It's what I do every Saturday morning.
Saw 3. This thing is like itching my tits.
Saw 3. Tokyo Drift.
Welcome back. That's right. It's time for James' Saw list. Guess how many were in this one? That's right. There were 17. But overall, though, I thought this one was much better than the second one.
So Saw 3 picks up exactly where Saw 2 left off, with Donnie in the bathroom with diamonds. We see that Donnie Wahlberg did find a way out of that bathroom, so I guess it wasn't that hard. If only Adam had thought of that. It's weird knowing that there are 4 movies ahead, because this did very much feel like it was trying to wrap up the story of Saw. Like, if this was the Saw trilogy, this would be a pretty decent closer. It's more the Saw escalation I wanted, where the traps felt bigger and more creative. They gave each failure or success in a trap meaning to the story and the characters. I think it's interesting to focus the story in on this idea of a family who's not appreciating what they have left, who let this loss destroy everything about them. The ultimate resolution of everything and how all of these disparate elements tied together was much more satisfying than Saw 2 was, even though I think they pushed things into goofiness a little too often. The main example I would use would be the brain surgery sequence, which just honestly really felt like it was out of another movie.
John, how you doing?
Never better.
For the record, we are watching the unrated cuts, so we're getting the full Saw experience.
Hello, Jeff. Over the past few years, you have become a shell of your former self.
My new favorite character, Jeff. I really like Jeff. He's a cool guy. Honestly, he came out
He's like a really cool guy.
Don't you beg. Do you know who I am?
tried to save everybody and then got all of them killed.
Got the key.
And then he was like, I forgive you, Jigsaw, and then pulled a big fat psych and slit his neck with a saw. And then he killed his wife by accident as well, but in his defense, he didn't know.
I think we really found our way back to the heart of the franchise. One of my favorite movies of all time is Die Hard, and part of what makes Die Hard so good is at the end of the day, it's a marriage story. It's about a guy trying to bring his family back together, but it's much better than other movies about marriage, which are always super boring because there's terrorists. So I think part of what makes Saw so good is the characters are having these very personal things. You really want Lawrence to get his wife back. You really want him to save his daughter. But it'd be really boring watching him try to just fix his marriage that had become loveless over time. What's not boring is watching him cut his foot off to heal that rift. And in this one, we got to watch Lynn and Jeff try to heal their marriage, which if you told me there's a movie where a girl named Lynn and a guy named Jeff are trying to heal their marriage, I'd say you can keep that one. But because it was a Saw movie and there was all this added spice, I really enjoyed it. I was rooting for those kids.
It simultaneously feels like they're wrapping up the story we've been seeing over the past few movies and also still establishing, like, we're going to make more Saw movies, don't worry. Like, we will make more of these if people want to pay. And they did. Saw 3, the first Saw arc is completed.
Sark.
Yes. The first Sark, if you will.
The saga. The
Face-
saga
the
is
saga.
right
Oh,
there.
the saga. There's contained Sarks within the saga.
I think that in Saw 3, they saw the mistakes they had made in Saw 2 and managed to course correct really admirably. I think it was interesting because at the start, the traps are really reminiscent of Saw 2. where I hated the traps because they don't really apply to anyone's situations. And how do they win this? There's no way. And it ends up being part of the plot.
Amanda, there are rules.
I said no!
And I thought that was really, really cool. And Jigsaw got to be the mastermind. And yeah, I really, honestly, I still didn't like it as much as Saw 1. But yeah, overall, Saw 3 good. My emphasis was weird there.
My favorite trap, though, overall, my favorite trap was definitely the pig one, because that's the one with the most saws in it.
And as for my favorite trap of the movie, I really liked the shotgun collar. Especially how at the end, when he's you think he's actually forgiven the guy and he's going to save his wife and kid, after he's gotten over the vengeance thing with literally everyone else and he can't let it go, and then he kills his wife. That's like poetic. That's cinema. I'll saw you next time. I'm going to please take it. Okay, so anytime we do a marathon, there's one movie that I get in for because everyone else hates it and I really like it. I really liked Saw 4. I liked it better than Saw 3. So the thing about Saw 3 is it felt like a return to form, but I didn't actually care that much about the people and I didn't really feel the stakes because the main thing the girl is doing is trying to save Jigsaw's life, and I don't care about Jigsaw. It's all about Amanda's inner turmoil, and I don't really care about that. 3, it was like on paper, I really liked it and it showed good things coming, but I couldn't get fully into it. 4, I was all in. I was rooting for Riggs in a way I haven't been rooting for anyone since my boy, Laurie Gordy.
When this movie ended, I was not a happy camper. This was not the kind of Saw movie I was craving, but having sat with it for a bit and listened to my friends talk about it, I had a pretty good time. I think the proper way to phrase this is, I do not like this movie, but I appreciate it.
Jigsaw wanted Rigg to see what he sees. He wants him to feel what he feels.
I like, as a narrative idea, making a police officer go through the process of creating a jigsaw trap and trying to make him understand. It's weird that the only thing that Jigsaw can get on Rigg is, you care about people too much.
But with your survival came your obsession. Obsession to stop those around you from making the wrong choices.
There were 6 in this movie.
You gotta hold the book up a little bit. It was a little off frame.
There were 6 in this movie. 6 saws. Could I have missed some? Maybe.
The one thing that diminishes it, there was too much Jigsaw origins. I don't always need the bad guy to have a backstory revolving on a wife and children, because a lot of the time it rings very hollow. But there's certain villains who, like, their whole thing is they care more about the bigger picture than their personal lives, and they're willing to sacrifice for their bigger goal. And then if you have it like, the reason they're like that is because they were really, really happy about their baby and the baby died.
I very much agree that the Jigsaw origin stuff was very trite. I think Jigsaw, especially now that they're going into the legacy of Jigsaw and having other characters take over, I don't know, I just feel like giving Jigsaw that much backstory, especially when he's already dead, like, that's not what's interesting about this, and the fact that so much of the movie is devoted to it too. It was worth it for the 1-2 punch of the insane twist that it was all happening at the same time as Saw 3, and then the ice blocks.
That was actually method acting. They really did that. They really killed him with 2 blocks of ice.
They don't talk about this a lot.
I'm glad Donnie Wahlberg's dead. More like Donnie Wasberg. I really liked when the timelines crossed over. I thought they built up to it well, and all the crossovers made me very happy. Like the fact the lady from Saw 2 or gets her hand stuck in there, turns out she's a prostitute. She shows up for like 3 seconds, but this gives her the backstory she lacked in Saw 2 because they never told us what her crime was. Now we know. It was solicitation. And I think that's really fun. Like, obviously it's very silly and maybe it doesn't add that much, but it's just cool to see people care so much about something like that and have such a vision for a franchise that's this silly. I like when there's no continuity too, but I like this a lot.
Really, I'm just along for the ride right now because at this point it seems like any character could be good or evil or working for Jigsaw the whole time. And frankly, I just want to see how many times they use that twist. There was actually someone else because it's getting funnier. And we all called it was Hoffman the second they brought it up.
Game over.
Yeah, no, my favorite trap was the one with the needles. That was one of my top for all of the Saw films because I just thought it was very cool how they did it, that like it was the different arteries, so she was fine, but it was the perfect Jigsaw trap in that it perfectly reflected the situation they were in.
How many broken bones have you suffered at the hands of your husband?
Like if she stayed, it didn't help him and she died, but if she left, she had to kill him. That was great. That was fantastic.
My favorite trap was also the needle one with the abusive husband. That was just really gnarly and sweet and satisfying. It's so rare that when a Saw trap ends, I feel like really satisfied. And that was one where I was like, this is a good outcome. I'm glad he's dead. That guy sucked. If the conflict has to be that simple, then so be it.
Double ice block, favorite trap, obviously. Sorry, Donnie Darko, that you died, but it is what it is. Buongiorno and welcome to Saw 5. There were 6 Saws in 5, ironically.
You said you didn't count one. You said you counted one over.
I did, so I squiggled it out.
So why are you saying there's 6 then? There were 5.
There were 5.
Start again.
There were 5 Saws in Saw 5. Ironic, ain't it?
Yeah, this one slapped. This was great. Definitely a cut above every other sequel. Maybe it was the different director. I'm sure that helped a lot because, you know, occasionally movies are influenced by their directors.
In choosing how to react to this situation, your lifelong instincts will tell you to do one thing, but I implore you to do the opposite.
For the past few movies, it felt like the traps themselves were more the star of the story. But in this one, not only were the traps more interesting and more creative and visually represented in a much more interesting way, but also they were so thematically and narratively relevant to what was happening. Because there are, as usual, many convoluted layers going on, most of which is picking up from 2 or 3 movies ago. But for this movie story, where it's sort of this cat and mouse game between Hoffman and Strahm, and Hoffman using this whole game to pin everything that's been going on with Jigsaw on Strahm, while Strahm is trying to find evidence that proves it's Hoffman, that stuff's great.
And then they decided that the nexus of the Saw movies, the most important thing to the timeline and the thing they will reference every tiny detail of for the remainder of the franchise history, is the 3rd movie in the franchise. I didn't really love 3. I thought it was promising, but I didn't really care about any of the characters. I didn't really care about anything that was happening. But now as we fill out more and more and more, it was just such a good setup for so many things.
And they gave like even like a little bit of a backstory to the one like razor guy in the first movie that was quickly seen just to show that there's other murders going on. They gave him like a whole thing. And they did it in a way that didn't feel forced. They did it in a way that was explaining Hoffman's story.
You can dispense justice and give people a chance to value their lives in the same moment.
At first, I wasn't really a huge fan of Hoffman being like the new Jigsaw villain. I was like, who is this guy? Like, how?
Softman. Sorry.
Yes. Good old Softman. You know, they fixed that in this movie. They gave him an interesting backstory. They gave him a reason to be doing this. I still don't like his face, but overall, smart villain and interesting guy.
I was very lukewarm on Hoffman to outright negative in the last couple movies. But in this movie, his backstory was so simple, so informative, and I really love the dynamic between him and Jigsaw, and just kind of watching him watch Jigsaw work, and you can see him sort of absorbing the information and learning the point of view. It makes sense from a franchise point of view that like a corrupt cop turned out to be working with Jigsaw, because how else would they get away with it after all this time, after all these traps? It makes more sense when you consider this sort of warped sense of justice that Jigsaw is working from, and how he could tap into that with someone else who feels wronged. And you have Hoffman, who is part of the justice system, but encountered this problem where the system didn't work and he wanted to take matters into his own hands, and Jigsaw gave him the power to do that. So you understand completely why he joined his side. Even though Jigsaw did say the funniest line in any of these 5 movies, which is when he's describing his process and says it works instantaneously.
If a subject survives my method, he or she is instantly rehabilitated.
I think statistically, even within Jigsaw's own workforce, that has been proven to absolutely not been true.
5 was fantastic. It had, I think, the best sequence of saw traps since the first one.
The device before you is one of sacrifice, a sacrifice of blood.
This is the only one where I felt like they came out of that and would be better people. And I was like, Jigsaw, I'm starting to see the vision. Not really, for legal reasons. Because I went into this, after you guys explained it, I went into this thinking I was going to kind of root for Jigsaw. And the first 3 movies, I was like, damn, girl, what are you doing? Who were getting killed in the 3rd movie? A couple that lost their child. And then in 4, they were like, whoa. That was pretty crazy. We're going to start killing some sex traffickers so you can feel a little better about this. They were either killing good guys or like people who were so bad it's like, keep them. They're never going to change. Let's kill them, baby. And that was fun.
That's what Jigsaw always says.
I want to play a game. Let's kill them, baby.
Let's go, girls.
I want to play a game. And then this one, it was like the people had done just enough bad that the people who died, I was sure were irredeemable people because they had a chance and they blew it. Like they were given one last life-changing chance to become not and they were like, no, I'm going to be worse.
I think course correction was really the name of the game with this one, but they did it so excellently in this, and it felt like they were reusing plot points we've seen before, both in terms of seeing old traps and seeing the acolytes work with Jigsaw and learn from him, but it was handled so much better here. I don't know, it's just the franchise has been at risk of feeling a little repetitive and a little over twisty, but this movie was just the best of all worlds and used the best of the best Saw elements all together, and it just coalesced into everything I want from a Saw sequel. The only thing that feels kind of out of place is Jill Tuck, and I feel like that's just because that character feels out of place, because as we said, the backstory with the wife and the kid for Jigsaw adds nothing, and she just feels really pointless, and now it feels like they're trying to give her character more weight and importance, but because I don't like her conceptually, I just don't really care.
This room will forever be your tomb, and my legacy will become yours.
But I think my all-time favorite trap will actually be the pendulum.
I really, really loved that shot of Strom's head in the box. Just that slow zoom in at the beginning before you realize what's happening. That's... I think my favorite trap was the... I love the pendulum. The pendulum was great.
Okay, favorite trap. The decapitating one was just really clean. That was kind of nice. I also liked him traking himself. Was that in this movie?
Yeah.
It was a really lame trap, but that moment I was like, damn.
And let's hope they keep this energy rolling into Saw 6, because frankly, I am reinvigorated, and I know Saw 7 is going to ruin this. Like, I just know it.
Welcome back. You know how many Saws were in this movie? Just 2 Saws. Only 2. Going back to the original, thank God.
It started really, really strong. I was very excited. I had high hopes, especially following the incredible journey that was Saw 5. Quickly loses steam. I really liked the police catching on to him. I thought that was so fun when Perez comes back and she's like, I got your number. Like, it's all very cool build up. And then he just stabs them.
A little flat. Not fully flat, but a little flat for me. Wasn't as good as 5, obviously, nor 1. There was no needle pit, unfortunately, but...
It looks like I'm putting on the Matilda hat now, because I thought this was excellent. I loved this movie. This was, to me, on par with 5. 5 was just such a sudden burst of energy, but this just rode that wave onward. I loved the Hoffman stuff. The director of this movie was actually the guy who was editing movies 3 through 5, and that's a really good place to pull talent from, I think, because who would have a better understanding of how these movies move and feel, and I imagine he put a lot of focus into picturing and planning shots that would flow really well together in this hyperactive Saw style that I've really come to love, and I only really love it with Saw.
Although it did feel weird having Saw deliver a moral message after all of this.
Healthcare decisions should be made by doctors and their patients, made by the insurance companies.
That's very nice, Jigsaw. Where was this energy when you were making suicidal people crawl through razor wires? because I feel like we've lost the plot a little bit somewhere along the way.
Piranha.
John,
I feel like the movie can't even really decide what Jigsaw's character is at this point. I think the movies are sort of retroactively trying to make Jigsaw seem like a better guy than he was to make his acolytes seem worse. But, like, he was still doing the plots of Saw 1 through 3. The aspect of Jigsaw's personality that's never really fully engaged by the narrative is sort of his hypocrisy. This notion that he views what he's doing very objectively, and this is right, and this is good, and this will work, and this is the way. But he always lets his personal biases and assumptions and vendettas get in the way.
But what about these people, Jill, who come here every day and use you?
And I like that. It's very human. It's very interesting. And I think they have overhumanized Jigsaw to a degree that was not necessary. I do like the needlessly convoluted stuff. Like, there was no reason to reveal that Amanda's game was put in motion by Jigsaw, and then Hoffman put this twist in there, and it turns out this big game that Jigsaw was planning to get back at this insurance guy was also Hoffman's game. Like, there's so many variables that Jigsaw must have had to consider, and I wonder, honestly, how long he was planning his own death, because it seems like his plan doesn't work at all without it. But if he doesn't trust anyone who is going to carry on his work, maybe don't hinge your plan on that. It has made the franchise feel a little limited that it turns out like every single person knows John Kramer and every single trap can be traced down to like 3 people who have wronged him. The new Jigsaws and the sort of subsequent antagonists we've seen have lost a bit of punch because Jigsaw is always in control of everything no matter what. It was like one twist too many. This is the movie about Hoffman becoming Jigsaw, and the ultimate answer is, actually, you also suck and can't do it, and this dead guy is actually the coolest, smartest man who ever lived.
The 6th one was for me.
And all that's left is Hoffman and Jill facing off, and that's not really a dynamic I care for that much and want to see a whole movie built around. So hopefully Saw 7 has something else going for it, or maybe it doesn't, and it's just
I'm hoping in the next Saw they show the bear trap, but actually doing its job. It's the most famous trap, and they haven't shown its effects except on a mannequin.
So my favorite trap was the one where I had to pick between the old lady and the young guy. I was like, what the
Standing on the platforms behind me are 2 of your colleagues.
Oh, yes, with the older lady who I am assuming is still standing on that platform to this day. Actually, I think the coolest one was the live, die. Very gooey, very nice. Appreciated it.
I think my favorite trap was the carnival ride, the 6 people in the carousel. And yeah, just the tension of who he's going to pick. It's almost entirely random, but you're just kind of waiting and watching and seeing all of these characters' personalities really come to life. And it is that thing Jigsaw talks about, where you don't really know until a person faces death whether they have the capacity to really fight to survive.
I'm pregnant! I'm pregnant! No, she's not! She's lying! She's lying!
And this was the first movie where I really felt that message shining through entirely.
Here comes the saw, do-do-do-do. Here comes the saw, and I say, ah! Saw 7, oh, I'm sorry, Saw 3D.
The final chapter.
The final chapter, as the English like to call it.
Famously.
A total of 6 Saws in this movie. However, there was a scene specifically that had a bunch of lawnmowers that were spinning in a spiral formation. And so we were thinking that maybe we'd count those. And there were around 20 of those little boys right there. So that would be a total of 26 Saws in Saw 3D, the final chapter. That is a total whopper of 60 Saws that we get in all of these 7 movies.
Wait, an even 60?
An even 60
Are you
Saws.
shitting me?
Anyway, about the movie itself. Very bad.
Your name, sir? John.
So full disclosure, I did allow drinking for Saw 7 because it just felt like a necessity because we've been here for 17 hours.
You, your girlfriend, and your friends are all racist.
This was terrible. This was really awful. I would say this is easily the worst of these. I do wonder, though, if it's just my complete disgust with the technical construction of this movie, because it looks god-awful in a way that is very notable, in a way that didn't just make me think, oh, did we get a bad copy of this movie?
I know that it's become a staple of these marathon videos that I have bad opinions. I like Saw 7. I like Saw 7. I had a great time. And it wasn't just because my man Lawrence Gordon was there. That was no more than 50% of my enjoyment.
Bravo.
Larry came back. That was nice. I was upset with the fact that he wasn't in the movie too much. And then the ending happened. And then I was very happy about it. Because turns out Larry was there the whole time.
I gotta be honest. I saw the twist coming that they were going to make him involved in everything. I didn't like it. Unfortunately, despite the fact that this movie was realistically not good for like 99% of it, the second that it opened with my man, Carrie, last name redacted, crawling away from the first Saw movie, and then I did start drinking right in that moment, I was like, that's a cinema.
This one was mainly just wrapping up every loose end that was left, and there weren't many left, and you can tell because they have to introduce a whole new police hunting down Jigsaw subplot, but they don't have any police left, so they just introduce like 50 new guys we've never seen before, and then kill every single one of them. Which really got me invested, let me tell you. And this really did just feel like this really limp epilogue that didn't really say anything new about Jigsaw or the story as a whole beyond the same 3 twists they've been doing since Saw 2, which the 3 twists of Saw are someone was actually working with Jigsaw the whole time, this wasn't taking place at the time period you thought it was taking place, or this was actually all part of Jigsaw's plan. And this movie does all of those. And it's also the lamest version of each of those, and the version of those that takes away from the overall story the most.
This movie did have the largest budget of the Saw franchise by quite a large margin. Like, too large a margin, and I don't think it was worth it.
Jill was just running from Hoffman. Hoffman was after Jill, and when he gets her and when the story seems completed, it turns out Gordon was also in on it the whole time, and he was actually doing all this the whole time, and it just makes me wonder, well, if Jigsaw had Gordon on his side the whole time, then why bother with Hoffman and Amanda, who he clearly can't trust? Just use the guy who listens to you all the time and does what you say.
Congratulations, Dr. Gordon. You survived.
Out of all the traps in this one, the one that really stuck out to me was the fishing hook.
Remember, the spikes will also advance each time. The decibel level in this room rises above a whisper.
And I really thought that was a really interesting take because there's so much screaming in this series.
Why would you just shut the up?
Favorite trap of the movie is, honestly, I like the chainsaws in Toronto right at the beginning, where they're like, we're about to kill this Canadian slut.
The same woman has played each of you for a fool.
I was like, yeah, that's how I want to go. Not true. Anyway, my total Saw ranking. Number 1, Saw. Saw the first. Saw the Phantom Menace. I think everyone agrees this is the best Saw. Saw number 5. Everyone also agrees. Saw 5 is clearly the second best Saw movie. Number 3. It's Saw 4. I had a great time. I enjoyed it. I liked it more than Saw 3. And you can't stop me. It's a free country. Number 4, Saw 3. A little switcheroo there. Number 5, Saw 6. Again, I think it was well made. And if I came back to them, I'd probably like it more than Saw 3. But I just didn't like it that much today. Who cares? It wasn't that much fun. Number 6, Saw 7. aka Saw 3D. My boy Larry was back. That's all I look for. Saw 2 is obviously dead last. Saw 2 sucked. There was not one redeeming thing, except like maybe when they showed the bathroom for like 1 second. I was like, that's cool. And while Jigsaw didn't lock me in a room and make me put meat hooks in my tits, I do think he gave me a new lease on life because I found a movie series I'll cherish forever. Carrie, if it doesn't work out with your current wife, give me a call.
My rankings of this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful series would be number 1 is Saw 1. And then in order after that would be Saw 5, Saw 3, Saw 6, Saw 4, Saw 3D, and then Saw 2. I just thought it was this huge gore fest that like didn't really intertwine except for the first few. And turns out it's actually a really well made, like, intertwining timeline of stories from all 7 movies. So as a whole, I was honestly very pleasantly surprised at how much I actually really enjoyed watching these movies.
I think my favorite trap of the film was the one Jill went through in her nightmare. It was so ostentatious and ridiculous, and that effect shot was so funny. My ranking of all the Saw films would be at number 1, Saw, then Saw 5, then Saw 6, then Saw 3, then Saw 4, then Saw 3D, then Saw 2. 3D narrowly edges it out because, Larry, this franchise does lend itself very well to marathons, and I honestly think a Saw marathon is going to be a new October tradition for me. I had an immense amount of fun getting invested in this franchise, seeing the crazy directions the story went in. It's a masterwork of stupidity, and I kind of admire that. This was really fun. I'm really glad we did this. I've been meaning to watch these movies forever. It was a joy to watch them with you guys. Yeah, I love Saw. I'm super into Saw now. I'm a Saw guy, even though I really, really honestly despised Saw 3D. The final scene with Gordon in the bathroom and that reversal and that final game over and that Saw theme kicking in one last time, and I love that Saw theme. I love it so much. I don't think there is a more perfect visual representation of the evolution of the Saw franchise and where it started and where it ended than having Dr. Gordon throw that saw in a terrible 3D effect right at the camera, and that being the final note. Game over.